Good morning, art students. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. So what we're going to be looking at again is our elements, principles of art, and we're going to be using those opposite meaning words and those few ideas that you did in your draw nows and write nows. So again, we're looking at the means of creating a successful design. So this project is going to specifically look at texture. So we're talking about texture as in like how things feel or how they look, how they would feel, and balance to see like literally, does one side of the work balance another side, or does one object balance another object? So if we keep looking at textures, what we can see is there's some things in this box that we could actually feel, like this fan here, we would feel those ridges. There's cards in here, they would feel smooth. It looks like there's some necklaces in here. And so they'd have different feels. But then we have images of this hand. So an image of this hand just looks like it's rough, but it's really not rough. That would feel soft. That's not a real hand. That's just an image of a hand. Just like these pictures are pictures of people or of a tree, but they're not going to feel that way. They're just going to look that way. So again, we have tactile texture that can actually be felt, and visual texture that is seen but not actually there. And if you go to your Google document, you will see those things there as well. So the first part, you can read about conceptual art, so what conceptual art means. You can see what we're going to be looking at for this project for the elements principles. You can read about texture, and then tactile texture is texture that can actually be felt, and I'll look at some examples, and then some art examples, but you can describe textures you can touch. So you can type in fleece blanket. You could type in a banana. You could type in hair. You could type in leaves. So all things that you could touch, and then visual, you would type in things that would visually look. So it'd be like image of leaves, or just image of anything really is going to be visual texture. You can also put smooth textures up here too. So glass is a smooth texture. And then down here, you could just put anything. But again, your examples, it could be a picture of sand. Would be another example of visual texture. So texture that is in the artwork, it looks like it has a texture, but it actually doesn't. So we'll be doing examples of both of these. So let's look at, before we go to define trompe-l'oeil, let's look at some examples here. So again, some artworks that are using tactile texture. So you can see these bottle caps would have a texture, so would the hair on the back of this. And you can see this giraffe image here. These teeth would have a texture to them. Even like the wood down here would have texture. These things would have texture to them. Like the texture on this, you can see the shadow here of how deep these grooves are, but that would feel like texture. This is certain fabrics that are, or paper that is on top of, glued on top of paper, so it's a collage. But if you felt this texture, you would feel that. This would feel kind of smooth. These would feel rougher. You can see those edges would feel rough. Same within this one too, there are different fabrics and papers. And the way that Van Gogh painted, he painted an actual texture. So you could, if you ran your finger along these ridges, you'd actually feel the paint, or even his hair would feel, you would feel texture there. And then visual texture looks like it's texture, but it's not actually there. So this looks like a hairy dog, but it's really not going to feel like a hairy dog. It's smooth. This is a smooth surface. But again, these ruffles here on the dress are going to feel like they're like the texture, or I'm sorry, they're going to look like the texture, but they don't feel like the texture. Also notice in this image too, we have a complementary color scheme, this red color here against this green, and that allows her to pop out more. Where the other figures and things are more of a dull brown, where they're not going to show up as much or have as much importance in the work. So this one, again, this is just a surface, but you're not gonna feel satin on the dress, or the hair or the skin's not gonna feel those certain ways. Now, trompe-l'oeil is an idea. It's a French word that means to fool the eye. So this is not a picture. This is a painting of a pepper shaker, and you can see there's a napkin holder here too. So even like this texture, you're not going to feel these ridges on this pepper shaker because it's just an image of it. Same with this one too. We have a painting, and this is called hyperrealism, where the artist is making something look so real, but it's not. Again, these ridges wouldn't be felt on the image; they would just be a smooth image. And then on this work, we can see the front of the store here. So this is called the facade of a building. But then over here, this is a blank wall that's painted to look like it's the rest of the building. So it's not. This is the trompe l'oeil part, is to fool your eye here. Again, here, this isn't a torn paper. It just looks like a torn paper. So again, it's fooling our eyes to think that it's something more than it isn't. And this isn't a leather bag. It's actually a bag made of clay. So it's an artist making a three-dimensional work that makes it look like it's something that it's not. So again, that's trompe l'oeil, to fool the eye. So if we go back to your document here in trompe l'oeil, again, you're going to type in to fool the eye. And then now we're going to look at balance. So balance is a distribution of visual weight within a composition. So you can either have symmetrical, like we've been looking at, or in your when you wrote and when you drew in your sketchbook, or just on a piece of paper and you sent that in. So you can draw an example. So you can go to the menu bar, and you can actually do this digitally. So you can insert a drawing. Either you can search something, so you can go up and search Google search, and you can type in symmetrical drawing. So you can type in just symmetrical. You can look at examples of symmetrical. You could also type in symmetrical drawing. And then you could get some sort of image there. If we look at images, so any of these images would work. You could just copy and paste that in there, and that would be an example. Or what I find would work even better is if you go to the menu bar, go to insert drawing. So menu bar, go to insert drawing, and you can actually make a drawing out here, a symmetrical drawing. So you can make a shape. So shapes, let's look at for a symmetrical shape here. I can make this symmetrical shape, and then I can even color it. I can change the colors on the inside if I want to. Let's see the border. This must be the border color. And then we could have some sort of symmetrical work, and then you could put more things in there if you want, like maybe circles on each side. So you can play around with this. If you hit save and close, it just inserts it into that spot. And then asymmetrical is going to be dissimilar objects that have equal visual weight. So it would be like, so we can either look up an example. So asymmetrical. And if we look at asymmetrical, a good example between the two, you can see a couple things here. So this one, notice we have this symmetrical tree where each side is identical, but in this one it's asymmetrical. They're not identical anymore. So this side is the same as the symmetrical one, but then the other one they make a different one, but the visual weight is equal on both sides. It's not like one side has more visual weight than the other side. Same can be seen in faces, especially with dark parts. I'm not sure what's happening on some of those things, but you can see again in this tree example, or even these leaves, symmetrical or asymmetrical leaves. So if we go back to here, we can look at our balance now. We can look at, so symmetrical on one side, in effect becomes a mirror image of the other side. We've already talked about that. Asymmetrical is dissimilar, just have equal visual weight or equal eye attraction. And then radial, when I show you the examples of that one, that'll become apparent too. So symmetrical, we can see even the words end up being symmetrical, mirror images of themselves. These aren't exactly exact, but they're pretty close. So you can see that one side is very close to the other side. It's, like I said, it's close, but it's not necessarily exact. Symmetrical meaning this part of the bush here is symmetrical with the reflection. If we cut this in half, one side would be equal weight to the other side. Asymmetrical is a little bit more difficult to see in that it's, well, we see symmetry, but it's not like we can draw a line down the center and say like this side is exactly the same as that side. It's just that they balance each other out. Same as here, this side ends up balancing out the other side. Or the clouds balance out the mountain. And it's the amount of detail here and the lack of detail here, even though it's a warm color. And then radial balance is going to be from the center, and it's things that come out from the center. So that has radial balance. So radial, you can think of kind of radius. So radial balance here, things coming out from the center. In this weather vane, things coming out from the center will have, I mean, like right now you can see it's almost symmetrical balance. But if you looked at it from the top, it would have a little different look of how it looks symmetrical. And then again, things radiating out from the center, but also from these edges here too. So if we go back to our papers, not really paper, is it? But what we're going to be doing for this work is we're going to think about an idea, so those opposite meaning words you've been looking for, and then we're going to take mixed media, so anything, any type of mixed media just means using anything to make art, and we're going to look at balance and texture. So list materials here, it'd be best for this project to be more than 8.5 by 11, and it can be anything, paper, canvas, cardboard. Don't think of just things that you traditionally think of art, think of it could be opening up a box for a soda cans, like that box there, or it could be something else. You can start with texture, like a cardboard texture, a canvas, or anything. And then materials that have both tactile, so texture you can feel, so like tissue paper, yarn, tape, glue, paint. You can get some textures that are really rough. You could also get smooth textures too. And then visual textures if you have magazines or photos, or you could draw on things to make it look like it has texture, but it doesn't. If you have paint, that could work as well. And then list those materials here, so you can just type in what you're going to use. So I could say cardboard. So cardboard box could be like my surface. And then I could draw on it and collage. Smooth and rough surfaces. And then in this project, it says, what will you use to design the design element texture? So what are some things that you're going to use for that and for balance? Select your 2 words. I've also put the words at the very bottom of this. So there's an image here of opposite meaning words. So there's a lot of different options here to choose from. Sometimes the most obvious are harder for people to see. So type in your opposite meaning words. So maybe yours are hard and soft. And then read to this part. This is going to be very helpful to read through. And then here's what our, and then let me tell this part first. So the project is due on May 15th. And then you'll submit your progress every 3 class days. So instead of every 2, we'll just do every 3. That should be easier on both of us, and you're not submitting so many images. And then and then you can have more time in between to get some feedback too. And we already showed this part, the opposite meaning words. And then here's your rubric for the project. So let's go back to our. So this is some student work that, some work that people have done in the past. So this is actually pieces of something torn out from the edges, or painted, I mean, to make it look that way, or the birds painted to make it feel like feathers. But then these are actual images that they printed out and then cut and then put on the paper. Again, you're going to use whatever materials you have to use. This person glued sand down so you could feel the sand, but then they had visual texture in the cactus, so it didn't feel like a cactus, but you get the idea that it would feel like a cactus. This one, they had visual texture in the grass, so it was painted this way, but it doesn't feel like grass, but it looked like it would feel like grass, or the bricks, or the roof. And then the actual textures, like in the popsicle sticks and feathers. And this one too, where they had actual texture with the cotton balls, but then visual texture with the images. So it looks like those images, or it looks like there's people down here, or it looks like fire here, but it doesn't actually feel that way. So if we just go back to, just to say one more thing. So again, your project is going to have both tactile and visual texture. And then you're just going to use one of these balance techniques. So it's either symmetrical, where it's going to be a mirror image, or asymmetrical, where where the work balances itself out, or radial, where things radiate from a center. So if you have any questions, make sure to ask, and I hope you're doing well. And this part where you're just filling in here, filling in these parts, this will be due in 2 class periods. Hope you have a great day.